Hey guys, welcome back. Tim Knox here in the Revolve Realty Studio. Got my guest, Michael Zuber, back with us. Michael is the author of One Rental at a Time. He is an entrepreneur, an investor, a teacher, a coach, a great husband, an all-around swell guy. How are you, buddy?
I'm pretty good. Can I record that again? I want to get that as my ringtone.
I'll send that for you. Hi, I'm Michael Zuber. Hey, we did part one of this where we talked about Michael's book and about his experience as an investor and got his take on that sort of thing. I wanted to follow that up with really, Michael, what's going on in the world. Mm-hmm. You know, the coronavirus is here.
Sure.
You know, mm-hmm. Trump was unable to scare it away, so here it is, and now we have to deal with it. And I want to talk a little bit about the effect it is going to have, number one, on our industry, on real estate, sure. but on people and on other businesses and really what's going on in the world. I mean, this is not, God forbid, the zombie apocalypse. It's kind of a bad strain of the flu, but you know, everybody seems to be in reaction mode because no one was really proactive on this mm-hmm. thing. So what are you seeing there as far as, let's talk about the real estate market first.
Sure.
Are you seeing this affect your business at all?
Well, so kind of yes and no. So let's clarify who I am, right? Mm-hmm. So again, I'm a real estate investor. I am somebody who's been watching the consumer and financial markets for the better part of 30 years. So when you hear my answers, that is the lens I give you. I am not a doctor. I've never been trained in medicine, not a virus expert, none of those things.
Right.
So if you want those answers, go somewhere else. But if you want to talk about how this is going to impact the consumer, how it's going to impact real estate, how it might impact the stock market, I have at least a well-informed decision with 30 years of track record in seeing multiple black swan events and kind of what happened. So again,
and you're in California, just to be clear.
I am.
Okay.
I'm in California, specifically the Silicon Valley or the Bay Area, whatever you know it by. Mm-hmm. So with that lens, I think there are things that are very obvious to me. And they will happen based on your area and based on your impact. They will happen, but they will happen mm-hmm. at different rates. For example, Santa Clara County, which is the county I am in, has one of the highest current infection counts. I think Seattle's above it, and New York, I think, just passed Seattle. So we're in the top 5 for sure. So I have seen it happen to me faster than others. I think it will ripple across America. And I think there's 2 things for certain. First, if you are someone who's thinking about selling your home and you don't have to sell, right? We all know there are life events that becomes a have to sell, and we'll talk about that in a minute because that's a big deal for me. But if you don't have to, right? It's like, oh, I'd like to move, or I'd like to do this, or, I like that new build over there. You are absolutely not going to list your home. And why can I say that with confidence? Well, I can say that with confidence because the entire media is talking about this thing being infectious and it lives forever, or not forever, but lives for hours and just all kinds of stuff. So the last thing you're going to want to do is have an open house. Mm-hmm. You don't want strangers coming in your house and touching or sneezing or coughing or whatever people do in your house. It's human nature. I mean, so I can confidently say that in most markets over the next 1 to 30 days, because this will ripple across the US, there will be less open houses. Okay. So that's listings. Flip it to buyers who, for the most part, are potentially making the biggest financial decision of their entire life, who are probably more nervous today than they were 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. They're going to be like, you know what? We kind of like where we are. Yeah, I know it's a rental. Yeah, I know it's an apartment. Yeah, I know it's this. I know it's that. Mm-hmm. Why don't we just sit back? Because if you're a buyer, there's almost no reasons you have to be a buyer unless you're in a 1031 exchange or some other things. And again, you don't have to buy in that. You could suffer the tax consequence, but there's very, very, very few have to buy. So the last thing you're going to do for the most part is go out there and go, you know what? Let me go plunk down something. Let me go visit 13 open houses and make a choice. It's right. It's not going to happen, people. Yeah. Now, in your market, you could tell me today on whatever it is, March 14th, that it hasn't hit you and open houses are great. All right, fine. I've been doing this a while. So tell me about that in 15 days. Mm-hmm. Then tell me I'm wrong. I don't mind being early. I don't like being late sucks. So that's just what's going to happen. So I believe with very, very big certainty that listings are going to go down and purchases are going to go down because the owner occupant buyer is getting scared, which means, to your other point, investors, if we're patient, and by patient, I mean weeks, maybe a month or two, we can strike. Because what happens when the owner occupants disappear? You still have some people that have to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to see who has to sell, I mean, you can go back and look at stats for your market, but the markets I were in like 2010, lots of transactions, and like 75 to 78%, depending on what you read, were short sales and foreclosures. Well, what does that mean for the other 22 or 25%, depending on your stats? They were normal sales. Who the heck in their right mind would want to sell in an environment where there are foreclosures and short sales everywhere and prices are dropping 5% a month?
Mm-hmm.
Well, unfortunately, some people have to sell. Death, divorce, job transfer. There are unfortunately reasons you have to sell. And if you have to sell in a market where the owner-occupant buyers are scared, the only people that will write offers are investors. And if you follow what I teach and talk about and will do, we are cheap son of a guns. So we will buy a lot of stuff cheaply,
Mm-hmm.
but you will be out. Your have to sell problem will be over. We will be creative. Maybe you'll get a better price if you own or finance. Great, we can sell. Maybe you bought a home 2 years ago in a high-tech capital of the world or wherever, and your job transferred because this thing, made a move manufacturing or whatever. Maybe we'll buy them subject to. I will do more transactions this year, probably starting in late April through September, October, than I've done the last 2 years. Because what do I look for? I look for motivated sellers because I want creative and cheap real estate. I'm not shy about it. And what's the hardest thing to do in a seller's market is find those people because everybody's stepping on each other. It is extremely easy to buy good cash flowing rental properties when people are scared. And again, I've done it. I have a documented track record. I bought more stuff in 2010 than any other year because they were everywhere and there were no buyers. They were in Realtor.com, Zillow, big capital letters saying any offer looked at.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that was done today? Do you think that's been done the last 10 years? No. But that is what's going to happen. By May, probably by May 1st, we are going to have some people have their real estate agents must sell. Any offer looked at.
Right.
And the only people buying will be the people with courage that have learned their market. And they'll do deals.
Yeah.
I'm confident I will do more deals this year than the last 2 years combined.
Yeah. And you and I have talked about this before. Your mentality as an investor is a little different from a lot of real estate investors because you very much are a buy low, sell high guy.
Yeah. I'll sell if you want to overpay.
And whether we like it or not, when something like this happens, it does create opportunities. But it also creates those opportunities, in my mind, create ways for folks to achieve the goals they need to achieve.
Yeah, I mean? When some people hear this, they may think I'm cheap or evil or whatever, but you're looking at it the wrong way. I'm helping somebody who has to sell.
Right.
Nobody wants to sell in this market, but sometimes you have life events that you have to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, we agree on a price or terms that are good for them. I am helping somebody move on from something. And I think that is very good.
But really that's kind of the folks. Yeah. Those are the folks that you work with a lot, though. You do, the folks that have to do something. The word is just
motivated sellers.
Hello. You ever do that? You're just completely blank. What's your name?
The more I get older, the more often it happens.
Yeah. So let's talk about it though from retail real estate, because here's some of the things that I'm seeing.
Sure.
And in my market, I mean, one of the hottest markets in the country, 20-year low on inventory, multiple offers the same day. We're seeing things like open houses being canceled.
Sure.
I've had several clients who are owner, live at the house. We don't want people traipsing through the house for now. So those listings have either been paused or we have put on the notes, no open houses. Another one, my daughter Chelsea is heavy into Airbnb. She's already seen some cancellations on that side of things where people are not going to be traveling. So I think there's a variety of impacts. Now the people looking for a house, it really hasn't impacted much because I've got one house that came on the market yesterday afternoon and we've had like 25 showings today. So those are the folks that need to buy and know the market is crazy anyway. But, from a standpoint of open houses and showings and that sort of thing, I am seeing that's going to slow down considerably, I think, as probably are the listings.
Yeah, no, I think your 20-year low of inventory is going to go lower. Because again, I am probably 3 weeks ahead of you, is my guess. And it got worse every day.
Yeah.
Listings are going to go down. The next thing that may happen is you'll have buyers back out. I've heard of escrows because again, I've been in the game 20 years and I talk to title agents all the time. And they've all told me about, they had Monday through Friday of this week, all of them told me about escrows that blew up. Some people blew up on the last day and they lost their earnest money. I mean, they're like, no, we're done. And we're talking big earnest money, like 40 grand.
Wow.
Like, nope, you take it. Right. I'm too scared. I'm too nervous. I lost too much value in my stocks, whatever it is. So my guess is you're 3 weeks behind me, but inventory is going to go lower. I think the owner occupant buyer is going to get nervous. I think it's coming. And I think Airbnbs, it's interesting with Airbnbs, right? If you happen to be in a market that is very kind of like beachy or vacation-y, you're done. You're toast. If you are in a market that is very kind of like monthly rentals, nurses, traveling nurses and all that stuff, you're probably going to be okay. Because again, one of the things that you're going to see in this environment that we're going to be in for a short window is the healthcare system needs help. And, traveling nurses are still going to be there. So it's going to be choppy. And unfortunately, there are going to be some investors who bought into the Airbnb model and frankly overpaid. I know many California investors thought it was the answer to cash flow. And I'm like, man, I've seen this movie before. It'll work for a while and then something will happen and it'll blow up. So there were people in the Bay Area, once again, overpaying for stuff. And I'll do room rentals and I'll do this. And I'm like, God, what are you doing? You're just, that's a caffeine high that you're eventually going to crash from. And unfortunately, it looks like the crash will be in 2020. And and they'll blame real estate because it's always real estate's problem.
Well, I think the thing that delineates a lot of the Airbnb is exactly what you just said. A lot of them are vacation rentals. Like, for example, like our market, the Airbnb, this is not a vacation destination by any stretch of the imagination.
Nor is Fresno.
Yeah, right? but we are a very high tech, the military is here, big relocation. We've got 1,800 FBI employees moving here. It's insane. So a lot of the Airbnbs are considered temporary housing.
Yeah.
Where companies will bring folks.
Better.
And I think that will continue to fare, but I think you're going to see, just to slow down. I think a lot of it has to do initially with fear because it is the fear of the unknown. What is this going to bring? I think it's probably going to, unless something drastic happens, we're going to see a shakeout here in a couple of weeks where people kind of get, okay, it's here, everybody, it's not Ebola, it's not the plague, it's not going to wipe out the majority of mankind. We can kind of breathe a little bit, but let's talk about it from the standpoint of other businesses though, because you and I both are entrepreneurs. I've been in retail, I've been in the software business, service business. Talk about a little bit about what's going to happen in those sectors. We're already seeing runs on grocery stores. What is it with toilet paper? Are you worried that you won't have enough paper to wipe your? I don't. No, well, it's like here's the big joke here. We're kind of the ass end of Tornado Alley, right? Okay. And so anytime there is bad weather, especially, let me back up. It's not really tornadoes. There's more snow and ice. Okay. Anytime here in Alabama there is that prediction, there is a run on bread and milk.
Sure.
Well, this time there's been the run on toilet paper. Can you explain that to me, Michael, in all of your wisdom?
The only thing I can think of is if you go back to California, the only thing people were talking about in Costco's and all of that was toilet paper and bottled water, right? This thing is not in the drinking water.
Right. And it doesn't cause diarrhea.
Yeah. So what I think happened is someone took that picture because it probably looked really weird, right? You get one of those Costco carts and you're piled up. Yep. And that just became the thing. It's like, oh my God, it's the scarcity mindset, right? If they're doing it, I have to do it too. What you should have been getting is, like you said, perishables and probably
Right.
meat and chicken, and freezing some, like hearty food, because I think there'll be a time where they kind of say, okay, everybody stay home for a week or 10 days
Yeah.
or whatever it is.
Well, we're seeing that here. The schools are going to be closed for the rest of the month, I think,
I
starting
think
next
that's
week.
going to happen
A
across
lot
the
of
country.
the companies are telling folks to work from home. The ones that I see really getting the hardest hit are those business owners. The business is going to go. It's going to go down. I mean, you're not going to do as much volume, not going to make any money. But the folks that do live paycheck to paycheck, which is most people,
Yeah.
And they work at companies, small businesses that maybe can't afford, it's not like Apple. Apple's telling everybody to take a couple of weeks off with pay. So it really trickles downhill from those small businesses down to those employees who are going to be out of work for a couple of weeks or whatever with no pay. And then that impacts everything that goes on.
Yeah, so I'm very anxious to read what was passed by the House of Representatives yesterday, and I believe the Senate gets it Monday.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like, again, I've read headlines. They haven't published the actual act yet, but I think it's called Families First. What I have read from that is they're going to give sick leave to everyone up to 2 weeks. They're going to give up to, I think it was 2 months family leave. They're going to strengthen unemployment. Basically, the only people that can address that is the federal government. Mm-hmm. My hope, dream, whatever you want to call it, is that these freaking idiots who don't like each other realize that their job is to help the American public.
Yeah.
And they put that bullshit aside and they help the American public.
Yeah.
I believe they're going to be children for a little while longer because they're just kids.
Yeah.
But they're eventually going to realize that their job is to help the American public. So I believe that aspect is going to be solved. I could see them cutting everybody a check. I've lived through that environment before. Mm-hmm. I remember one time they cut everybody a $600 check. I remember one time they gave everybody who bought a new home $8,000. If the federal government says, you know what, we're going to shut down America for a month. I'm just making this stuff up. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to give every human being 10 years and older $1,000 or 15 or $2,000, whatever it is. That will allow people that live paycheck to paycheck, that live on tips, that are all of this. It will allow them to pay the rent and get some food. It's not going to allow you to go do stupid things like buy a new car or anything like that. Right. But it will allow you to survive. It will take that paycheck to paycheck stress off. And let's be clear, I think they should do that. Mm-hmm. Because what we have to do is we have to get through a 2 to 10 week problem.
Right.
And then things get better. And they probably get better wickedly fast. Because the American public, the American economy is the most robust, strong thing. We have something that we weren't ready for, that we can get through, but it will take all of us working together. And the federal government has to lead both freaking sides. Get off your I hate you, you hate me bullshit, and let's solve this.
It kills me that they're pointing fingers at each other.
Stop it. Do that later.
No, it's your fault. No. You know what I mean? I mean, what kills me about this should not be politicized. Okay. This is not a time to choose sides and point fingers. Get politics out of this, and let's get things in place, and let's look at, taking care of the folks who put you in office in the first place. It always kills me when they politicize stuff like this. Like if there's a mass shooting, the first thing they do, well, those damn Republicans, well, you know what I mean? And I'm seeing that happening a lot. I'm hoping that kind of comes together. But go ahead.
People are people, but let's. You know what? If you want to politicize it and use your campaign ad, don't you freaking dare do it for the next couple of months until we're back. Yeah. Right? Yeah, I get it. Free press, blah, blah, blah. Do your thing, but let's not do it the next couple of months. Let's remember why you're there.
Yeah.
And it's to help support the American economy. The fact that the Senate was on recess, I'm like, oh my freaking Lord. Why the freaking heck are you on recess?
Yeah.
I mean, that is, politicians suck.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about business owners, because one thing that I'm seeing are people seeking to take advantage of the situation. And this always happens. It's when people are charging, $7-8 for a bottle of water, or, $100 rolls of toilet paper. I mean, those people are just crappy people to start with.
Yeah. Right? Karma's a bitch.
Karma is a bitch, and it will come back around if I have anything to do with it. But
I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah. So do you ever, I know you're on YouTube, you've got a really great channel, but do you ever watch Meet Kevin? the real estate guy out of he's out of California. He has a real estate financial advice channel, and he did a really interesting video yesterday. And his suggestion to the government was to do a 2-month suspend all payment kind of thing, which I think is brilliant. Now again, the folks that are owed money are the ones that are going to take the hit, but they may be the ones that can stand it a little better, especially if there's a makeup for that at some point,
Yeah, I think again, he got the idea from Italy. Italy was the first country to do that. I think more countries will follow. I think Meet Kevin is near as I can tell, a quality human being. I was lucky enough to interview him 6 or 7 months ago. I like his story. I think delaying, and again, he's talking about payments, like interest payments, mortgages.
Right.
The federal government already delayed student loans, which is a huge step forward. We have two things that we have a reality. Too many Americans live paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
We are in a world for the next couple of months where the revenue side or income side of that is going to be highly suspect. The federal government can come in, write a check, as we just talked about, to help fix that. But we can also come in and fix the expense side, which is credit card debt, auto debt, mortgage debt. And you're right. The federal government could come out and say, everybody with a bank loan, credit card payment, we are telling them to delay payments for 60 days, put it on the back end, create an air gap, whatever. They could do that.
Right.
And I hope they do, right? Because the only way out of this is to reestablish confidence and belief in the American system. And right now, it is still on the way down. It will probably be way down for a couple more weeks. But when you start stacking up wins, which we will, right? This thing that was passed yesterday, Families First, declaring an emergency, delaying student debt. We are starting to stack up wins.
Yeah.
Until kind of like Thursday, we were all losses. Everything was an L. Right now, the L's dominate the W's, which mean, losses and wins. Yeah. But at least we have a few wins on the board. It's going to take a lot more, but at least we're doing the right things. Like just this morning, Apple closed all stores outside of China, which is really telling, right? China's open, but everybody else is shut.
Isn't it funny? Well, now they say the recovery is happening in China, so everybody's getting better.
So social distancing works. So unfortunately, we have to go through our social distancing.
Yeah.
It sucks. I get it. But we have to get through it if we want to, limit the impact of this long term. So the federal government has the power to fix the income side. They can cut everybody a check. They also have the ability, with support from the financial system, to have a holiday, a mortgage holiday, or whatever they want to call it. We're going to get through this.
Sure.
I have no question that the American economy is strong, vigorous. This is not going to kill us. This is not going to create Armageddon. It's going to suck. We will have loss of life. We will probably have more loss of life than we should have, but we are where we are. I think 2020 ends much better than it started. 2020 has been crappy as a beginning year.
You know what? It's been an interesting year. I mean, the question in my mind is, are we going to learn anything from this? Because, and again, as bad as this is, and I don't want to belittle it at all, it's not the plague. It's not the Spanish flu. Some people are going to get sick. I saw a thing this morning that said the majority of folks with the virus will never show symptoms.
Which is the problem, which is one of the nasty
which is why we
side
spread
effects
it.
of this thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If 95% of the people don't know they have it, but they give it to the 5% that are suspect, that really sucks for the 5%.
Right. Well, I saw a news report that, this all started in China, and the guy, he wasn't from the CDC, but he was from some university, and he was talking about China and how a lot of these infectious diseases come from China because their diet is pretty much based on wildlife. And you go to these markets, first of all, China's got 60 billion people, and they're right on top of each other. Well, a lot of they don't have a Publix or a Kroger on every corner. They have these open air markets. The biggest one, I think, is a mile by a mile. You squeeze through, and everywhere you look, there is every manner of wildlife and animal live in cages.
Yep.
And everything from chickens, rabbits, bats, ferrets, geese. You name it. And they literally have cages stacked up on top of each other, and they will kill, butcher, and cook the animal right in front of you. and there's no USDA here, man.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
And
you
so
know,
like this supposedly it started when someone, I believe it was a bat. And that this whole
they're not
thing,
sure what it is, but it's some animal. They call those wet markets, just
wet
to put
markets.
in
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, put in context of what you're talking
They're
about.
really wet markets.
Yeah, it's you know, I'm not here to judge what they've done. They've been doing this for
Well, it's the
hundreds of
culture.
years.
They've been doing it forever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but when you it's a petri dish. When you stack up that many different variations of animals that close to humans in a humid environment, you have created a petri dish.
Yeah.
It should be known that China's central government in the last 3 or 4 weeks have canceled or made that an illegal practice. So they now have, for the first time, acknowledged that that's a problem. But let's not just blame China. Africa.
Oh no.
Had this happen,
Africa's the same way.
With Ebola and what they call, I forgot what they call it, but basically you go out and hunt wild game of anything and any kind of animals. And that's where Ebola jumped from.
Yeah. And that's where SARS came from.
Yeah. It's just other countries don't have the first world infrastructure of the United States. We are blessed, lucky, and fortunate to have that. And we need to help other countries get to our level, and hopefully that's a lesson we learn going forward.
Well, I think the point there, and you said it, we are not one world.
No,
there are very different cultures, and I think what we have to do is figure out, okay, how do we safeguard against that sort of thing?
Yes.
And I've always believed this, and I'm an old writer. I actually wrote a short story about this, that the world will not end by nuclear war or global warming or doing mankind. It's going to be some little microbe that you can't even see.
I agree, a trillion percent. The thing that I hope there's a couple of lessons learned. It's funny, I put out a video on my top 10 yesterday of what I hope we learn from this. So that's the first one. I hope we have a federally mandated group, something beyond the CDC. I want a new thing.
Yeah. Your
job is to think ahead and fight the unknown virus, because Mother Nature created this thing. The people that think this was man-made, people are not creative enough. This thing has a hard shell. It lives on surface. I mean, men are not smart enough to think of this nasty bug.
Right.
It's Mother Nature, right? It's or whatever. It's whatever. So I would love to see us, once this is over and passed, that we create an agency that's well funded, that your job is to sit in silence and get PhDs and smart people in the room for forever. And think about this, because if we could have had a vaccine for this 6 months earlier than whenever it comes, because I'm convinced we will, that would have been awesome, right?
Yeah.
They have a stack of possible vaccines. So that's something I hope we learn.
Yeah.
The other thing I hope we learn is living paycheck to paycheck, buying wants versus needs sucks. A lot of the stress that we're feeling today, which again, I firmly believe the federal government will eventually get their heads out of their ass and solve, will,
go ahead.
Shut up.
You're so popular.
I don't need to talk.
That's the president calling to get your opinion.
What do they do? Oh, this is somebody sending me a fax.
A fax? What's a fax?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
I had an agent text me the other day and said, "Can I fax you an offer?" And I'm like, "What? What's a fax?" No.
Yeah, that's my all-inclusive scanner fax thing. So I use it for a scanner, but I guess I didn't even know it's still plugged into the line.
That's funny.
But anyways, that is funny. But where were we? Well, things that we're learning. I hope people learn to save. I think actually what's going to happen for the next month or so is people are going to really start to understand what a want and a need is.
Right.
The American economy is a consumer-driven economy, and most of that is wants. We freaking want the new iPhone. We want the Gucci bag. We want the Nikes. We want this. But you know what? When it comes down to it, we need shelter and food.
Right.
And
basics.
And I think people are going to really see. I mean, I've already seen it. Again, Santa Clara is a few weeks ahead of you. I checked my credit card statement today for the last 2 weeks of March versus last March. Man, it's different.
Is it?
It's way different. We haven't gone out to eat in 2 weeks. That's, a couple of grand. Haven't got gas nearly as much, right? Got gas once versus 3 times. I'm like, man, this stuff adds up. So, that's going to happen.
Well,
and I hope we focus on happiness.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are not happy unless they do have a lot of stuff that they're indebted for. You know what I mean? But,
yeah,
I think the bottom line is we're going to be okay.
Yeah,
there's going to be some struggles and some strife, but at the end of the day, again, this is not Armageddon.
Nope.
It is going to alter the way we do things. Here, a number of years ago, we had a bad tornado outbreak, and it hit a power station. So we were without power, without electricity for like a week.
Oh, wow.
And you talk about changing your lifestyle because you had no lights. Now, and we cooked everything out. We took everything out of the freezer before it could thaw, and we cooked it on the grill. Yeah. Neighbors were kind of sharing, and I actually, and this is really weird, I enjoyed that time because it was just me, my wife, my daughter, candlelight, playing games, awesome. Eating everything under the sun. So at least now we have electricity, we have running water, we've got everything we need. It's just, this is more of a financial hit than anything. And I think,
actually, I want to
go ahead.
I actually don't think it's a financial hit.
You don't think so?
Maybe you're using the wrong. Maybe we have a different definition of financial. And I say this with a 2008 lens. 2008 was a financial crisis.
Well,
Today is a Main Street crisis.
Yeah. Well, this is more coming out of the pockets of normal people rather than the big banks and Main Street and that sort of thing. That's what I mean by that.
It's a Main Street problem.
Yeah,
Main Street's income.
I'm a firm believer. I mean, I play the stock market heavily, stock market. Oh. And I'm not afraid. I mean, it's going to come back. You know what I mean? It's going to bounce back. It may take a little time, but I think if we just all work together, be kind to your neighbor. If you see someone in need, help them out, and just kind of chill a little bit. I'm a big fan of chilling, Michael.
There you go. I think that's great advice.
All right, buddy. Hey, I appreciate you doing this. Get a plug in for your book and your website and your YouTube channel.
Yeah, if you like what we're talking about here, I watch the financial markets every day because I'm trying to figure out what the consumer and cost of capital is. You can watch that every day, usually 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning on my YouTube channel called One Rental at a Time. If you have any interest in real estate or real estate investing, go to Amazon or Audible. And again, One Rental at a Time.
The best darn book out there on the topic of getting started in investing. I highly recommend it. One thing that's funny, we've been doing this for an hour. You haven't touched your face a single time. I've touched my face 774 times. But when you get my age, nothing's going to get in here, so I'm okay. Hey, we'll put links to everything down below. Hey, buddy, this has been fun. Let's make this a regular thing.
You got it. Anytime you want.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.